afternoon, and welcome to Washington Performing Arts Town Hall Meeting. My name is Elizabeth Rocheva, and I'm Chief Philanthropy Officer of Washington Performing Arts, and I'm so glad that you've joined us today. Before we get started, I want to share a bit of housekeeping to orient you. On your screen here in Zoom, there are a few tips to help your experience be as positive as possible and to allow you to participate fully in our town hall. At the bottom of your screen, you'll notice a chat function, a raise hand, and question and answers. When you entered today's town hall, you have been muted upon entry, and you're only able to see the videos of the panelists who are participating in the town hall. However, we really want to hear from you throughout our whole session. If you have a question at any time and you'd actually like for us to bring you on screen, you may raise your hand. Notice this here in the bottom of your screen. Our staff will be monitoring the raised hands in the participant section of our chat continually. You may also pose questions through the Q&A. Notice this in the lower right. Q&A questions can be typed directly into the Q&A box. Our staff will be monitoring these and bringing them forward during the Q&A portion of today's town hall. For some questions, we may choose to answer them during the course of the entire experience in written form, but otherwise we'll bring them forward with a question. If you'd like for us to bring you on screen to pose your question directly to Jenny or our staff team, please say so in the Q&A box. We'd love to see your face and transition you to be a panelist so that you can ask your question directly. So just say, fine to do this on screen. Additionally, you'll notice this chat bar at left. You may chat throughout. We may post some questions of you, and we're happy to see your commentary throughout the town hall. A couple of notes though. You may send your chat messages either just to the panelists participating. That means none of the other participants on this town hall will see your feedback. Or you can choose the option to pose your chat commentary to all panelists and attendees. So make sure you've specified which you would like to use. Earlier today, we did have a slight technical difficulty and our town hall accidentally ended. If this happens during today's session, please just wait a moment. I will restart the town hall and then you can log back in using the same information you used to join initially. Finally, we are recording today's town hall meeting and we're sharing that with some of our funders as well as our industry peers. Finally, as Chief Philanthropy Officer, I want to thank you so much for your support of Washington Performing Arts in so many ways, including through our Champion Fund. We're really glad you're here with us today. And now I'd love to introduce Tom Gallagher, the chair of our board of directors, for a special welcome. Tom.
Hi, thank you, Elizabeth, very much. And hi, everybody out there on our virtual town hall. I have been very privileged to be close to this process since we pivoted very quickly to go from a in-person town hall to a virtual, in-person gala to a virtual gala over the course of about 72 hours. And actually was looking around during the break from our previous town hall, a famous quote from World War II. And Jenny actually reminds me of a general whose name was Anthony McAuliffe. And McAuliffe was in charge of one of the divisions of the Army during the Battle of the Bulge. And he was in a particularly difficult spot, and the German commander opposing him asked him to surrender, and McAuliffe famously said in one word, nuts. And I would have to say that would certainly characterize WPA's attitude to the adversity we're facing now. So I'll turn this over to Jenny. Jenny has not only been leading us, but also has been very active in the region, in the district, working with government leaders, working particularly with the DC Capital Arts Group, providing leadership and a voice for all the artists and artist presenters in our region. So thank you. Take it away, Jenny.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. And I'm so happy that all of you could join us today. I know that we have friends, members, patrons, partners, and peers with us. So welcome. I hope that everyone in your life is healthy and safe. And in advance, I just want to let you know that this is the busy time of day in our home. We have two very active parrots, birds, and if you hear some vocalizing, that would be them, not me throwing my voice. So anyway, I want to thank the Washington Performing Arts team members who have really helped to mobilize today and who've been working so collaboratively and energetically while we've been working from home, all while doing some pretty extraordinary work that I'll speak about shortly. We're joined today by several of my colleagues, and I'll let them introduce themselves now. So Michele Hoffman, would you start?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Jenny. My name is Michele Hoffman. I'm the Director of Education and Community Engagement.
And I'm Matt Campbell, Director of External Relations. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lorenzo Evans, and I'm the Director of Finance and Chief Operating Officer. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Samantha Pollack, Director of Programming. Great to be with you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mei Yu. I'm the Director of Individual Giving. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Troutman-Yunilu. I'm the Assistant Director of Development Resources.
Hi, everyone. I'm David Dalton. I am the External Relations Manager. Great to be here. And I think that is all of us, so I'm going to throw it back to Jenny.
Great. Thanks, David. I'm really glad to have this opportunity to update you on what Washington Performing Arts and our community of artists and arts educators have been doing, and importantly, to hear your questions as well. First, I know that you're eager to know what we have in store for 2021. So I do hope that you'll join us on June 15th, which is when we'll unveil some of our plans. Governing our planning is really the overriding goal to sustain Washington Performing Arts as a thriving destination for artists, audiences, and lifelong learners. This is why we've really strived to remain in dialogue with you and others in our community and to be as transparent and consistent as possible. Your input today is meaningful as we head forward. COVID-19 has upended our sense of emotional and physical well-being, and its impact on the economy is undeniable. We are changed by it, but our resolve to remain vibrant is unwavering. From the start, we focused on 5 tenets: survival, resilience, creativity, impact, and connection to community. Over these past 8 weeks, our team has been managing the complex unwinding of 24 public events, dozens of education and community-based programs, and processing several thousand donations or refunds. And I echo Elizabeth in thanking you for your generosity throughout. At the same time, we're looking ahead creatively and clear-eyed. What we are not doing is indulging in magical thinking, assuming that we will simply wait this out and return as we did before. What we are doing is focusing on those 5 tenets and Washington Performing Arts mission, which has endured and adapted over the course of its 54-year history. We aren't doing this work alone. Our staff works in partnership and with the support of our board, junior board, and women's committee, and I am grateful to them. And we are collaborating with peers, constantly synthesizing data from diverse sources and surveys, working within business and arts cohorts, regionally and nationally, to share best practices and knowledge. It's honestly the highest level of transparent communication I've ever seen in our field and across our region. It truly energizes and inspires me. Ultimately, there is neither need nor virtue in doing this work alone. Our artists know this too, as do you since you've joined us today. We've been inspired by how artists are seeking connection and reaching out from studios and living rooms all over the world. They are determined to stay visible and active through expressions of shared hope, grief, and joy. And in many ways, it's art that's enabled many of us to weather this period, transporting us for a moment through film, music, theater, or dance. We're committed to honoring artists' expression of generosity and connection by ensuring that they return to active duty and are compensated for their work. At the same time, by finding ways to reinforce your bonds with them. Which brings us to this moment and to the positive role that Washington Performing Arts can have in this equation. I hope that you've been able to spend time with our online programs. We'll send you links after the town halls today in case you want to explore or revisit our night-in packages and live stream events. These have been developed by our creative and resourceful digital engagement focused team, or DEFT. And they're intended to spotlight our artists and partners, including the Philadelphia Orchestra, Veronica Swift, our teaching artists, and Mars Arts DC artists. So now, speaking of local, DC has a wealth of talented artists who are also gifted teachers and who've been involved with our innovative arts education program since our earliest days. I'd like to share with you how we're staying engaged in the classroom in the present, partnering with DC Public Schools in supporting the social, emotional, and cultural learning of the students. So I'd like to bring back Michele Hoffman, Director of Education and Community Engagement, whose team has been going full throttle with teaching artists both through our public school partnerships and gospel program to transition our programs online. They've also found wonderful ways to bring some of the teachers' creative engagement skills beyond the classroom to all of us. And we have a special treat for you at the end of this town hall as well. So please stay with us the whole time. Michele, can you tell our friends how Washington Performing Arts is carrying all of our arts education and gospel programs forward?
I would be very happy to. We're very proud of the work we've been doing all the time, but especially since we've been quarantined and working from home. In the very first days in our transition to work from home and school from home, we wanted to continue to engage in our programs in meaningful ways through as many methods as possible. And for us, that meant creating learning opportunities to support students and teachers, and then the families all around our region who are now finding themselves homeschooling. We also wanted to think about the best ways to support the local teaching artist community through their engagement from their safe spaces. And most importantly, we wanted to continue to find ways to creatively make art. And so we've done that across many of our programs, including the gospel choirs and some in-school initiatives that I'd love to tell you about. For the gospel choirs, from the first possible rehearsal date where we met online via Zoom, the students and children of the gospel have been engaging in masterclass style rehearsals. They've received weekly assignments to do on their own. They participate in their musicianship courses via Zoom, and we've wanted to creatively engage them in some digital content. And so we challenged children of the gospel to do some recording and re-recording and potentially some re-recording, and then submit their videos to us. And you'll see the end result of that later. The men and women of the gospel have also been continuing to meet periodically, whether it's just to get together and chat or to participate in some new musicianship courses for them. For the school programs, we have been partnering with the DC Public Schools. DCPS reached out to us because of our long history of partnership, but also because we have been nimble and able to make shifts quickly with them. And so they gave us some challenges about lessons that could use some video support and artistic support, which we then passed on to teaching artists. We had about 35 teaching artists participate in a webinar with our education team to talk about the kind of content and ways that they could record so that it's really useful and wonderful engaging video content that can also be used later when we're back in person to complement their work. And so we have been, over the past 6 weeks, working with the artists to create content like master classes so that they can be engaging with students live. They've been creating video concerts. They've been creating video residencies. And a lot of that work has gone out through DC Public Schools, whether it's through direct links to families, but also through DC Cable, where students and their parents are able to access the videos through their TV in case they don't have online capability. And so we've been really proud of all of that work and excited to share it with not just DC Public Schools, but our larger Washington Performing Arts community as well.
Thank you, Michele. It really, I have to say, it's been remarkable how quickly the teachers and the choir directors and musicians have made this shift. It's remarkable, and having had the pleasure of sitting in very briefly at some of the gatherings, this sense of connection and community is so vital, and especially our students are taking it so seriously. So Michele, I don't know if you have anything that you could show our friends today. Do you have something queued up for us?
I do, in fact. I wanted to share an example of one of our remarkable teaching artists, Monti Gonzalez. She is an incredibly talented vocalist who has performed and toured with Wynton Marsalis and Jazz at Lincoln Center, and we're so lucky to have her locally. Imani works with us in our Capital Voices program, teaching students in choral ensembles, but also does a great deal of work in world music and cultural connections. And so she put together a digital residency. It's a series of 3 videos exploring the arts and culture of India. And so what I've got for you today is the 3rd video in her series. The first 2 talk a little bit about the culture of India, clothing, cuisine, what it's like to live in India. The second video is about some language and cultural connections in that way. And her 3rd video, which I'll share an excerpt of, is sharing a little bit of the music and instruments of India. So if you'll allow me, I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Sharing now. Okay. So just before this excerpt begins, she's talked a little bit about a couple of instruments, sitar and tabla, and then what you'll hear is her starting to teach an Indian song. So enjoy.
Instrument I wanted to share with you is the tabla. The tabla are 2 drums, and you get many different sounds from the tabla. It can go so fast, and it is a wonderful sounding drum, keeping the timing and the music, the tabla. Now I'd like to share with you a song entitled Dimiki, and it means the universe is dancing to the rhythm of the sounds vibrating from the drum. The universe is dancing to the rhythm of the sounds vibrating from the drum. And I want you to really use your ears and listen, because that's what music is all about, listening. And I want you to really observe, there are 2 different things that are happening in this song, and I want you to see if you are able to tell me what they are when I finish with you, okay? All right, here we go. Dimiki. Dimiki, dimiki, dim, dimiki, dimiki, dim, nache, bola na. Dimiki, dimiki, dim, dimiki, dimiki, dim, nache, bola na. 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 Dimiki, dimiki, dim, dimiki, dimiki, dim, nache, bola na. Dimiki, dimiki, dim, dimiki, dimiki, dim, nache, bola na. 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 Dimiki, dimiki, dim, dimiki, dimiki, dim, nache, bola na. Now, before I let you see the words to the song, I would like for you to tell me what you heard. There were 2 things. One was the volume.
And so that's an example that might be shared with an elementary school classroom in our embassy adoption program, or a capital arts classroom, or even a family that's just interested in learning about culture.
That's great. Amani is a treasure and has been such an important part of our arts education program for years. I know this past week or 2, we released a sort of make instruments at home guidance from one of our teaching artists, and I attempted to make some percussion instruments with an assortment of flower pots and vases. So, we welcome you to check out the online offerings, and we'll tell you a little bit more about them later. Thank you, Michele. So I think now we have an opportunity to talk with Matt Campbell about our survey results. I know many of you will have completed the survey, and truly, thank you. I know that there might be a little bit of survey fatigue because we're all being asked at various periods to fill out pulse surveys and regional surveys, institutional surveys, but truly I can't tell you how important that data is to us. So Matt is going to give you a roundup of some of the outcomes of the survey or the results of the survey, and then I'll be right back. Thank you. Go ahead, Matt.
Thank you very much. And Elizabeth is queuing up our findings here. So as Jenny said, we wanted to check in with our patrons and our supporters because you know, the world has changed so much since the days when we could all just share a concert hall together. So we wanted to see how you were doing and how you were feeling specifically about when you might want to return to live performance in a concert hall or other public setting, and also what you've been up to online and what you might be willing to get up to online in terms of performing arts programming. So we had a 30-question survey that was open for 10 days, and it was promoted via a couple of emails to our entire mailing list. And we also did a little bit of social media promotion. So we had, let's click over to the next slide. So we had 500 respondents, which was great, we thought, for such a short time and not a super wide distribution campaign. As far as who took the survey, not surprisingly, a lot of our nearest and dearest. In the upper right there, you'll see that 90% of all the survey takers have been to one of our performances within the last couple of seasons. On the upper left, a full 80% of the survey takers had been with us for 3 years or more, and a very large subset of those had been with us for 11 years or more. So to all of those of you who took the survey and all of those with you online with us now who've been with us for a long time, thanks so much. You'll also see a really strong representation from both our subscriber and donor base. On to the next slide. In terms of our age groups, it's what they call in the film business mature audiences. So ages 45 and up represented 82% of our survey takers. The largest single slice of demographics were the 65 to 74 range. A third of our respondents fell in that range. And not too surprisingly, our survey takers were clustered in the DMV. I think it was 86% of our survey respondents lived in DC or the fairly close-in parts of Northern Virginia and Maryland. Now let's get to the meat of the subject here. In terms of returning to live performance, I think the message our patrons are sending us is that they are being rightfully cautious, and they're also following the science on when it might be safe to return. So in terms of conditions that would need to be met to return to concerts that are indoors, 51% are looking for rigorous testing in place. 36% are looking for the curve of the virus in the greater DC area to be flattened. And 36% are looking for a treatment regimen in place. And by the way, I'm performing a no-no of reading the slides just in case anyone's having any trouble seeing the screen here. So, so for outdoor performance, very similar, except social distance seating comes into play. And in this slide from one of our Library of Congress shows last year, it's sort of an approximation of what outdoor social distance seating would look like, but that wasn't literally the case. That wasn't the point back then. 42% are looking for rigorous testing in place. And then once again, a large percentage are also looking for the curve to be going down. By the way, in case anyone is wondering about a vaccine being in place, which is certainly another big topic in the news. I believe it was 32% of folks want a vaccine in place before they go back in person, and it was more like 25 for outdoor performance, which again seems consistent with the science. Next slide, please. So then we're also, as I said, looking at what you all have been up to and what your preferences are in terms of online entertainment and artistry. So in terms of how long you like to spend online watching a performing arts program, the sweet spot seems to be up to 90 minutes with a slightly larger percentage wanting to cut off at about an hour. The next lowest, the next percentage down was, I believe, 18% for half hour. So roughly the length of time you'd spend watching a TV drama or perhaps a shorter movie. In terms of what you're looking for online, not surprisingly, people want to get away from it all. So fun and enjoyment topped the list at 88%. Inspiration and enlightenment, something we also need in a tragic time like this, 80%. And then connection to a specific artist was 70%. Now, in terms of activities so far lately, I was actually very impressed with the level of activity our patron base is showing online. A full 48% have sampled 1 to 2 programs per week since our whole COVID lockdown and stay at home began. And 21% have sampled a full 3 to 5 programs per week. So taking a lot of people consuming the equivalent of a full Washington Performing Arts subscription every single week. So kudos to you for staying connected, everyone. And then I believe this is our last slide. In terms of paid content, right now we've had a variety of completely free online content. We may move in the direction of some more premium programming. Premium in terms of what it costs us to put on rather than the quality of the art, I should specify. But 65% of those surveyed are willing to pay for online programming to some extent. And then the factors that were most important to them in that were the artist, which makes a lot of sense, and then also the audio video quality. We've all been enjoying a lot of impromptu performances from people's living rooms, but I think in future people are looking for something of quality that's comparable to what they would experience in a professional broadcast. As far as how much people would want to pay, somewhere in between the cost of a streaming movie and sort of a nightclub cover charge. So in the $5 to $25 range, skewing slightly towards the 10 to 25 range. So that's really great information for us to have, and it makes sense in terms of other online alternatives that are out there. And I believe that was the last slide, so I'll kick it back to Jenny. But first, again, thank you to everyone who took the survey. The survey is closed at this point, but I'm sure we'll be doing another as we continue to feel our way through what life is like now on Earth and in the performing arts. So thanks once again, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt. Indeed, these data points are important and informative as we plan our next steps. And as you know, Washington Performing Arts doesn't own or operate its own performance venue. So this enables us to be nimble and adaptable and to synthesize your feedback, and also to work with our venue partners as they develop their health protocols and their phased opening plans. So with that, I'm sure that you have questions. I love that there are so many people who've joined us. Why don't we turn now to our Q&A?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jenny. Please do put your questions in chat or in the Q&A. You can also feel free to use that raise hand function, and we're happy to unmute you and invite you to pose your question directly to Jenny, or we can even bring you on screen as a panelist. Just let us know if you prefer that. As you're contemplating the questions you'd like to pose to us, I know we've had some anonymous questions come in advance of today's town halls, and I'd like to ask May, you or Sarah to share with us a couple of those questions, please. May you?
Yes, thank you, Elizabeth. My first question is, what are venue partners thinking in terms of reopening, format, and layout of patron attendance? Casey, Six and I, Strathmore, etc.
Sure. Now, this is a question that is very much on people's minds because obviously Washington Performing Arts uses a number of different venues, and happily, the venues have been so incredibly responsible in assessing exactly how they can bring audiences back in, whether it's from the parking garage through the lobby, if the lobby has space or not, into the concert hall, down an aisle, and into the seats. And many of our venue partners are looking at a phased return, date unspecified, but a phased return where they would bring in 10% audience and then sort of build from there with very complex and spacious seating designations. But the patron experience isn't the only part that they're considering. In fact, they have to take into account the social distancing of artists. And many of our stages welcome choirs and orchestras and dance companies and theater companies. So the social distancing that artists need on stage is paramount as well. And given that the backstage areas are really intended for dressing rooms and sort of queuing up before artists head on stage, you'll find a lot of equipment and whatnot. It's very difficult for people to socially distance backstage. So I know that many of the questions are about sort of the patron flow and the phase back, but also venues and artists are thinking about how they can socially distance and provide a safe environment. I hope will be reassured that all of our venue partners are working with public health authorities, with physicians, with a number of different resources to see how they can provide a safe and sanitary environment and to turn over the space and clean it. So they're looking at a very granular level at all aspects of their operations. And in fact, they've invited many of their partners, including us, to provide feedback on where we think some of our patrons' concerns will be. So that's why when you complete the survey, you provide us with really valuable data that we can then share with our performance venues as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny, and thanks for sharing that question, Mayu. We've had a question from one of our attendees whom I've promoted to a panelist. Dr. Stephen Piper has a question, and Stephen, you're a panelist now. I'm going to unmute you for you to pose your question.
Hello.
Oh, hey, Stephen.
Hi there. I don't know how the video works, but
We can hear you. We can hear you, even though we can't see you.
oh, okay. All right, then I'll allow it to the camera.
There you are.
There you are.
Get used to this thing. Jenny, you were just talking about working with the different venues.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm wondering, you know, this year we've had a couple of great international orchestras. What is it going to be like? When can we expect to see an orchestra again? Because they've got travel and organization and they've got horrendous schedules. What kinds of things are you hearing from orchestras and ensembles about how they're looking ahead?
Yeah, no, thank you. And I should say Dr. Piper is a member of our board and has been very involved with Washington Performing Arts for many years, and I know has been a supporter of our orchestral programming. So incredibly grateful to those of you who have made this possible. So, you know, orchestras, obviously, you know, mass gatherings is our business, and orchestras are large ensembles. The international travel, the air travel is very complicated. In addition, economically, a lot of orchestras, most orchestras rely upon patronage and support in order to be able to afford to travel. So there's a lot that is literally unknown at this moment. A number of the orchestras that we had planned for next season have had to be rescheduled for future years because their tours haven't been viable. And frankly, we don't know when the mass gatherings and social distancing will allow for the larger ensembles to convene. So I think that, you know, for the moment, things change week by week, but this is one of the most concerning things. And not just with orchestras, any artist traveling internationally, it's not just a question of the travel, but then also all of the people that musicians would come into contact with as they go to different cities on a tour, different venues, their luggage. It's when you begin to sort of unpeel the onion, there are so many different layers. But we have always been committed to orchestras, so we'll hope that those questions are resolvable in the time ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Steve.
Thanks to
Great
you
to
and your
see you,
team.
Stephen. Great to see you looking so well.
You're not so bad, Tom, either.
Oh, well, let's not go there yet.
Now,
maybe later.
I'm going to invite Sarah to pose a question. I think we've seen a question come in on chat. I wonder if you can bring this forward, Sarah.
Sure. Irfana on chat says, hi, WPA team. Thanks for sharing this info. Wanted to know if you're looking at utilizing non-traditional spaces for presenting performances, like parks, open space, plazas, urban farms, and streets. Outdoor spaces will be safer and likely to be the first to do larger scale programming.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the data that we saw indicates that people are getting their heads around outdoor spaces, but you know, there's still a lot of concern about how we socially distance, and there is often the illusion of greater safety outside. And so I think that many of our colleagues who do operate outdoor spaces are looking at those protocols as well, how they manage people and crowds and numbers, and do all of that sort of crowd control and social distancing outdoors. But we are thrilled to have had a long time relationship with the with building bridges across the river, B-Bar, and the Arc, and to be a co-curator of the Anacostia River Festival stage, a number of outdoor events that we have partnered with over the years, are eager to get going again. And we're right on the cusp of the Black Love Experience, great partnership with Nubian Human at the Anacostia Art Center. So through our Mars Arts DC programs, we have placed a very high emphasis upon, quote, non-traditional performances, or perhaps the most accessible performances, free of barriers of high cost, or in many cases, any cost. And we really treasure that, that opportunity. We're uncertain of what will happen this summer because, as we know, many events have been closed down, but we work very comfortably in open space, in interior space, in unexpected space. And that's actually part of our program design and our production habits. So we'll continue to look at that as a really viable way of all manner of communication. I would also add that, as you've seen a little bit today, we are also learning to navigate the virtual space. And to that, I would have to give real props to our DEFT team. And I wonder if David would like to say a few words about some of the virtual programming that we've been able to bring, because this is something we've done through our simulcast, through some of our programs over the years with the US Air Force Band, with Yo-Yo Ma. But we've been working in that space for the past 8 weeks. David, can you share some stuff with our friends?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And I think a little bit of what I was, about to say in response to your question here might also speak a little bit to, I think, Chase's question. So if maybe Chase wants to pose his question first, and then I will kind of speak to both.
Sure.
Chase?
Yeah, sure. Hey, thanks for putting this together, everybody. This is a great conversation. I've been hearing from some friends and colleagues about sort of like a bubbling interest in trying to promote more at-home performances, things that are live, not necessarily online. Could be like in a backyard or in a living room or like in the park down the street. And for two reasons, sort of to support community artists, keep them employed, and also just generally elevate the arts in the city. Since large institutions that we typically rely on are more closed, I wonder if you all are thinking of any ways you can use your nimbleness as an asset here to facilitate some of that really hyper-local performance in the community, which may be a safer option for a while before the public spaces are open.
Yeah, so to tie together both of those things, yes, we on the digital engagement focus team, or DEFT affectionately, are working on many a way to sort of translate a lot of the programs that we were doing in real life already into the digital space, to sort of create our own sort of special venue in various ways, and to deliver it in a variety of capacities for the different ways that people consume this. And so one of those programs is sort of what you would imagine being a live stream performance. This is an artist in a living room somewhere, and we are going to live stream them on our Facebook page. And to speak to your question, Chase, just this Thursday, this coming up, we are going to be going live with a local artist named Brent Peterson. He has recorded an album called Anacostia Songs, and it's totally inspired by and all about the Anacostia River and the surrounding community. And so he's going to go deep dive into his inspiration there, how he wrote the songs. He's going to perform the whole album, and just doing our part. We're gonna have up on the screen a little virtual tip jar. It's just his Venmo handle. If you want to send him a buck, thank him, and support the art that he's creating for his community, in our community. that is totally something that we are proud to do and will continue to do as we move forward. But aside from the local artists, we've also gone live with phenomenal jazz vocalist Veronica Swift. There was a Q&A portion with that live stream that was really fascinating. We went live with a couple of our education partners who are both on faculty over at the Levine School and are just phenomenal performers. So that was a wonderful lunchtime performance we had a couple weeks ago. And if you go to our Facebook page, you can see all of these videos and go enjoy them on your own time. Another sort of format that we've developed for delivering this content is we call it a night in, and it's delivered to you as an email. It is basically a DIY kit of content. We have gone out and curated a bunch of content for you around a single artist. For instance, we did it with a classical pianist, Jenny Lin, who we were going to present, unfortunately, until the pandemic made it impossible. But so Jenny, for Jenny, we put together there was a performance video, there was an education section with fun activities for your kids. There were little tidbits, fun facts, like Jenny Lin is currently binging this on Netflix. If you want to, share that in common right now with this artist, that is something that you can enjoy. There was even a food and drink pairing, which what I really like about that package is that you can sort of consume it at your leisure. You can go as deep, go as hard as you would like on this content, or not. And it's we are currently working on building out a section of our website to sort of house all of this content and archive it. So you'll be able to go to our website and peruse all of these programs that we've now published and put out there. There's also a lot of content that we're that doesn't necessarily follow one of those two formats that we're working on. For instance, a video that our Children of the Gospel Choir have put together, and education activities like make your own instrument at home. Here's some advice on how to do it. Here's some inspiration, and we invite your participation. So we're working on a lot of really fun, interesting things, ways to hopefully highlight the artists that are in our community, ways to provide a variety of ways in which our patrons can participate and stay connected with us during this time from home. So I hope that answers your question, Chase. I hope that speaks to the sort of the breadth of what we're doing in this time. So
actually, I'd love to, thank you, David. I'd love to jump in too and just underscore that our Mars Arts DC program was conceived 6 years ago to really shine a bright light on the enormous talent of artists who live and work in Washington, DC. And, we don't ask our artists to do these sorts of things for free. We provide an honorarium because it's absolutely essential that we underscore and amplify this notion that artists currently may be doing things for to bring wider visibility and connect, but it's imperative that we find a way for them to continue to earn a living, and we have to set an example for that. So the example with Brent Peterson for Thursday, with the honorarium plus whatever people feel moved to give, I think is a way of beginning to address that.
Excellent. I see that we have had a question come in to the panelists from Tom. Tom, I'd love for you to come back on screen and pose your question, please.
Yeah, thanks very much, Elizabeth, for inviting me back. So a question for Jenny. What is it that you think WPA brings uniquely to this time of the virus? What about us do you think makes us uniquely capable of addressing the current moment?
Well, thank you for that question, because it really does speak to the enduring mission of Washington Performing Arts and the incredibly special people who have made this organization such a thriving and cherished part of our local and, in fact, much wider community. There is that nimbleness, of course, because we're not managing a venue, and we have the ability to be in many, many different spaces, whether indoor, outdoor, in classrooms and so on. And I actually really treasure that. It means that we can put all of our effort into programs and patrons and the staff to support and nurture our different communities. But in addition, the foundational commitment of Patrick Hayes and Doug Wheeler to everybody in, nobody out, the sense that Washington Performing Arts should be a porous organization and inclusive. Really, these values have become sort of our North Star, and it's something that people sincerely embrace, that whether it's the staff, the board, the junior board, the women's committee, our patrons, we have received so many remarkable and loving emails from people during the past 8 weeks, identifying the inflection points in their lives that this organization has been part of. And I feel such gratitude for the opportunity to figure out what this next chapter looks like. I think that we have the great ingredients to make that happen. And it's absolutely the mission that is our North Star. Thank you
Thanks,
for your
Jenny.
leadership in it, Tom.
Thanks, Jenny, and thanks, Tom.
Great pleasure. Thank you.
We have a question that's come up actually from a wonderful partner in helping bring WPA into the virtual space, our wonderful special events consultant, Roger White from RJ White Event Production. We love you, Roger.
Hi, everyone.
Roger.
Thanks for posing a question.
Yeah, so my question was specifically about on the Washington Performing Arts website. Is there going to be a platform or a page that will act as a virtual library for all of the virtual content that Washington Performing Arts is creating and will create?
And Matt, I know you've really been, oh, sorry, Jenny.
Nope, I was going to do the same thing, hand it off to Matt.
Great.
Okay, thanks for your question, Roger. The answer is, the compound answer is yes, and coming soon. So we're at work on just such a section now, not just a page, but really a whole subsection of our website in which you'll be able to check out upcoming events as well as archived events, and also filter according to what type of event it is, what genre, etc. So we are trying to, in a lot of things, we're trying to seize this moment, not just to react to the crisis of COVID, but to think of new ways to do things in general. So online programming is an interesting challenge. So just because it's all we can do right now doesn't mean we shouldn't be thinking about the best ways to do it. So we want to create a really robust section of our website in which everything will be archived and searchable, including, as I said, just a quick place to check for upcoming events and calendars. So please watch this space. It's in development now. I can't give you an exact date when it'll be ready, but in the very near future. So thanks for your question.
Thank you, Roger. Thanks, Matt.
Roger.
Some of our fans have sent notes to panelists to recall, in further response to Chase's question, to recall that some of our Mars programs, in fact, have even been in people's homes and backyards, even in the past, 5 years ago. We blues events in Ward 8 in the Anacostia neighborhood, backyard, hip hop poetry. So it's exciting to continue to consider how we will amplify and carry forward that activity, both in those kinds of spaces and online, as David described.
Yeah.
Sarah, I think you had another anonymous question that has come in.
Yeah.
Thank you to Anonymous.
This one's been answered in some parts, but looking further out, how can artists and arts organizations stay connected to patrons if concerts are banned for a year or more?
Well, yeah, indeed. I love that some of the questions that have been posed give us a chance to address that. One of the things that has been most exciting is to reflect back upon the level of openness and generosity that so many artists have demonstrated by making themselves available and taking questions and providing answers to people in their fan base. I mean, I know that I've dialogued with artists who've been doing house concerts and having a chance to say hello and connect, and then, you know, pull out a recording or go to one of the various services to listen to their music. One thing has sort of led to another, and the sense of fluidity that we have with technology and different platforms has actually enabled a deeper dive in some cases. So I think that using technology is a very powerful way to do it, but you know, noting that there is a huge amount of content online, a great deal of saturation of information material. So I go back again to the data that we're getting, which is that people appreciate it. They are accessing it in various finished or more raw form. And our challenge is to look at how we might sort of frame and provide a really great visual and acoustic environment for artists to do work if they're going to work online. I think most importantly, we seek to find the connection in whatever domain we're working in. And in that way, the Washington Performing Arts mission and work is very durable. You know, over the years, home theater systems have become very popular, and that has required arts presenters such as us to find different ways to engage with our patron community, and frankly, different ways for artists to think about their programs and their the local and intensely local way that they support their arts community. So, you know, we haven't been a monolithic field, or successful organizations haven't had a monolithic approach over, you know, decade after decade. All of us have had to adapt. This sets a very, very high bar for, you know, for us to adapt as a field. But I think that the will and the creativity is there, and thankfully our artists are willing. So we're embracing it as an opportunity.
Thank you, Jenny. We would love your final question. Now's the time. I think we have time for one or two more quick questions before we begin to close out. Does anyone have a question to pose in chat or in the Q&A, or if you'd like to raise your hand, use the raise your hand function. We can call on you and either and just unmute you or bring you on screen.
I'd like to ask a question to the participants, if that's okay.
Yes.
What are your aspirations for Washington Performing Arts? You know us well, you've taken the time to be here, so I read that as an expression of your interest and your affection and appreciation, I hope. What would you like to hear and see from us? How are we doing, and what would you like to see more of?
We'd love to see your responses and feedback in the chat box. You can reply to all panelists and attendees, or just to all panelists if you like, but please, we would really love to hear your thoughts on Jenny's question. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
International orchestras, like the West Eastern Divan, we love them. We loved having the ensemble back this year as well. As you're contemplating that, I will share with you some housekeeping. Feel free to keep thinking about your questions. If they didn't come to you during this town hall, weren't at the top of your mind, we invite you to follow up with us afterwards. Send us an email. If you have thoughts about our online performance and arts education content, either a question about how to access it, or ideas or feedback on what we're presenting or what we could be presenting, please email us at deft@washingtonperformingarts.org. If you have general questions about WPA's plans, email ticketservices@washingtonperformingarts.org. And again, we encourage you to stay engaged. This Thursday, as David mentioned, is our next WPA Live. It's featuring Mars Arts DC artist, guitarist Brent Peterson, with his songs about Anacostia, the river. June 15th, we hope you'll join us as we unveil our plans for the months ahead. Watch your inbox and social media for details. We will be sending emails to our entire database of folks, as well as publicizing this heavily online. And anytime, of course, we would invite your support. You can become a champion through a gift to our Champion Fund. The website address is on the screen. And fundamentally, again, we are so grateful for all the ways that you're showing your support and encouragement of not only Washington Performing Arts, but also all of our peers in the arts ecosystem here in the Washington area and around the country. Your support is critical, your engagement, your applause, your great ideas as we continue to sustain our mission with passion and purpose. So thanks for being here today. I'm going to kick it back over to Jenny. I see some my screen lighting up, so I think some feedback has been coming in.
Oh, good. I just want to add to what Elizabeth was saying about June 15th. We do hope that you'll join us for unveiling our plans. And I also truly want to manage your expectations as well, because as we reflect back on the past 8 weeks, we know how much has changed in the world. And we're really keen to embrace this very iterative process that we are all going through to try to address the opportunities ahead and to remain nimble, but we're very eager to continue to press forward. And I hope that you'll join us on June 15th. So we've asked you to stay until the final moments of our town hall, and we're so grateful that you've been here. Thanks for those who ask questions, and feel free to continue to be in touch with us. We recognize that this new way of living and working requires constant communication, and we hope that we're doing a good job and that you're hearing from us as regularly as you'd hoped. But one of the things that people have asked is, why does art matter at this moment when there are so many enormous problems globally? And there are so many things that command our hearts and minds. And it's true that many of us are pulled in so many different directions. There's a huge amount of need, but then also a very human need to connect. And the arts for centuries have been a point where people find shared joy and honor their emotional connection and their humanness. And so we're propelled by that history of the arts' role in healing and propelling people forward. We find it easy to answer, why does art matter? And perhaps the most eloquent expression of that is in the voices of our youth. Children of the Gospel, we mentioned at the top of our town hall, had a real desire to stay together as a community and continue to work together. They decided to do a recording of their anthem, a work called Why Do We Sing? And thanks to the miracles of technology and the perseverance of very dedicated musicians and staff and our dear, wonderful young men and women, we've been able to create a video that we hope will touch your hearts as much as it does ours. So please enjoy Why Do We Sing, featuring Children of the Gospel, directed by Michele Hoffman. We'll be back in a few moments.
Why do
Thank you for being with us today. That's truly one of the most inspiring experiences and inspiring notes we could end on. If they could do it, we could do it. So thank you for helping us make it happen. Stay well.